This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic!
What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is January 9th, 2025. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host Kevin Tucker. And Kevin Tucker, Paolo Banchero is just about back.
That is music to my ears, Jonathan. You know, Wednesday we got the word that he's being bumped up to questionable. Shams tweeted out that he's likely going to return either Thursday against Minnesota or Friday against Milwaukee. Either way, it feels like he is basically back, and man, I am so fired up for that.
It started Tuesday with Paolo's Instagram post. I think the caption was like, how my season's been going so far, and you go through and it's a lot of photos of him in street clothes, and there's like a couple of photos of him like recently going through workouts, and how did he say it? Like, be back. What was the exact wording that he said? Like the wait is almost over, or something to that effect. I can't remember quite now. I'll look it up as I fumble through this and as we talk through that. But that was like, to me, a big sign that he was legitimately almost back. And I even tweeted Wednesday morning that I wouldn't be shocked if we heard that Paolo was. I wasn't sure that it was going to be a full participant in practice. So this is what he said. The wait is almost over. Yeah, he said, oh, look at how my season been going. The wait is almost over. And that was Tuesday. It's like, okay, he's got to be pretty close if he's tweeting that. And then, yeah, we saw Mason Williams, Jason Beatty, Philip Rossman, right, Dan Savage, all tweeting this photo of the huddle of the Magic after practice. And you see Paolo Banchero with the rest of the team in the black, like, starters jersey. And then, I don't know, about 10 minutes, 15 minutes after that, then we got the quote in the report that Paolo Banchero went through a full practice today, and as he's continuing to progress towards a return. And then, I don't know, was it like 20 minutes after that, we got the Shams report that they're anticipating his return Thursday or Friday during the Magic's home back-to-back.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. And it's funny, if you think back to October 31st, that was when the Paolo injury was first announced. It happened the night before on the 30th. But October 31st, they said, what did they say? 4 to 6 weeks until reevaluation, right? So here we are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Today, as is released, will be 10 weeks to the day since the announcement of the injury. We told y'all it wasn't going to be 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know that I thought it would be 10. I mean, I knew it was in that range. And obviously, he's not back yet. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse. But when they say he's going to be upgraded to questionable, and when Shams says he's probably going to make his return either Thursday or Friday, I'm feeling pretty confident that he's pretty much back. And so it's been quite the journey without him. A lot of highs, some lows. But nothing will replace Paolo Banchero, and I am beyond glad to have him back here very shortly.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. I want to hit the brakes just very briefly, quick detour, and then we'll continue to talk about Paolo. Just a couple of things coming up. It looks like we are going to have Paolo back for the January 17th matchup against the Boston Celtics, in which we are having a watch party over at Stadium Club, which is located at Caribe Royale, Orlando. Address is 8101 World Center Drive. So maybe you were on the fence about coming out to that game. Oh, no Paolo, no Franz. We haven't had Jalen. We're playing the Celtics. Maybe we're going to lose that game. Who knows? We thought for sure we were going to lose to the Knicks on Monday. We're able to pull out that win. And hey, with Paolo Banchero, there's a really good chance that we are going to be competitive and maybe even win that game against the Boston Celtics. So this is your sign to come out. If you're waiting for Paolo Banchero to come back, to come to one of our watch parties, this is the one to do that. So again, we're going to be at Stadium Club. This is just such a sick venue. I'm looking at photos of it now. Again, the 360 bar, they've got the bar on the second level as well. They've got the 360 video board all around the first floor bar. Great food, great drinks. They are asking folks that are coming to RSVP. It's not required to get in the door, but it goes a long way in helping Stadium Club prepare and staff appropriately for this watch party. So we are going to leave a link to the RSVP in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. So if you could take just a couple of seconds to do that, probably not a bad idea to reserve a table as well if you did plan on sitting down, getting something to eat while you're there. The RSVP and the open table link will be in the same link that we're going to put in the description. So not a bad idea. Really looking forward to that. And then Kevin and I, we're going to be in the building on Friday when the Magic take on the Bucks, and we're staying the night in Orlando. And Saturday morning, we're going over to Jam Hot Chicken for Jam Fest 3 this Saturday, the 11th, starting at 11 o'clock. That's going to 7. They're going to have all kinds of stuff, different vendors there. Our friend Gio from Players Only Closet will be there selling vintage Magic gear. There's going to be live music, different vendors. There's going to be coffee. There's going to be food specials, all kind of stuff to help celebrate their 3 years being there at 400 West New England Avenue in Hannibal Square in Winter Park. So be there. Obviously, we'll be there having a great time, eating great food. They're going to have like a smoked hot beef rib. They're collabing with Smoke Made Meats in Orlando. There's going to be a cold brew and lemonade with Curate coffee available as well. They're going to be doing hot wings, Kevin. They're going to be doing chicken and waffles. Like, there's just going to be a ton going on at Jam Fest. So hope to see you all there. Again, that's going to be this Saturday from 11 to 7.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, I'm pretty sure, Jonathan, I saw some Jam Hot Chicken ribs that they posted. Yeah. That is ludicrous. Yeah, that is going to be crazy. If you want some like special food offerings that you will not get probably any other time, Jam Fest is going to be there in Winter Park on Saturday. Like Jonathan said, we'll be there at least for the beginning part of it. I got to skip town shortly thereafter, but we'll be there at the beginning and have a good time and eat some good food. And yeah, hope to see you there.
Andrew posted that those ribs will most likely be gone like by 2 o'clock. Wow. So I told him, like, I'm planning on being in line at like 10:50, throwing elbows, boxing out, doing whatever I have to do to get my hands on that. But Kevin, let's just, like, I haven't really had the opportunity to sit and really be excited about Paolo being back. We got the news earlier today, but obviously work and life and all that kind of stuff. I'm just so excited to have like the offensive hub back and the guy that you can just lean on and say, hey, big fella, we need you to go and get 40 tonight, or we need you drawing double teams and kicking out to open shooters. And the fact that we're going to have that back, I think this team, we talked about how fatigued we've been the last week or so. It's been a month without Franz. It's been 2+ months without Paolo. And it feels like it's weighing on the fan base. It felt like it was weighing on these guys. Like, they only have so much in the tank, and they were only going to be able to overperform in the way that they've been for so long. It just felt like they needed a shot in the arm. And to me, I think this is the shot in the arm. This is the juice that this team needs to, like, they're playing relatively well. They're getting wins, but to take them back up a level. So you're not fighting from behind in so many of these games. And, maybe some of these games you can win a bit more comfortably. And I'm just ready to watch Paolo Banchero play basketball again, man. It's just a special, special thing to see.
There's so many sides of this, right? Like, on the one hand, doesn't matter if it's Paolo or anybody, you're just getting another body. Like, at this point, with the number of guys that are out, just adding another body is going to be huge for these guys that are having to go out there and play a ton every night. Certain guys that are playing minutes they're not used to playing, all that kind of stuff. So that's part of it. Part two is, we've talked about this several times, I don't know what to expect, like, from Paolo when he comes back, right? I'm not going to sit here and expect him to go ahead and drop 30 in game one that he's back. He was averaging 29 in the season, before he got hurt. I'm not expecting him to go out there and do that. He's been out of the game for, what did we say, over 2 months now, right? But that's also at the same time not what this team necessarily needs night one, right? It's such a morale boost, I feel like, at least for me, that there's plenty of time. There's plenty of wiggle room for Paolo to get ramped back up if that's what he needs. There's also a chance that he doesn't. He's been out for 2 months. He's potentially been healthy for how many weeks? We don't know. All that stuff happens behind closed doors. But there's a chance that he's been playing, obviously not organized, but some level of basketball behind the scenes for potentially some time now, and might be darn near 100% when he comes back, right? So there's so many different like angles to this, and a lot of it remains a mystery. But there is no scenario where this is bad, right? That's the part that's so exciting, that there is no negative outcome to this, right? Paolo comes back, whether he's perfect or still, not at 100%, whether he plays 40 minutes or 20 minutes, like none of that matters because he's going to be back. He's going to be ready to influence the team. And the one more thing to this, I've gone on forever. I'm interested to see if this has changed him as a basketball player, in the sense of he's had so much time to sit on the sidelines and just watch the NBA game, which he hasn't been able to do yet. Like, does this change how he approaches the game? Like, is he more cerebral? Is he more, has the game, quote unquote, slowed down for him, as that phrase is so popular in the NBA? So all those things combined, I could not be more excited. And yeah, the only question remains for me, is it going to be Thursday or Friday? But outside of that, just bring it on. I'm so ready for it.
I think we're like right around 2 weeks or so since we got the like official designation that he was like returned to competition conditioning, like that kind of stuff. So who knows, like you said, exactly like how healthy he is or like where that conditioning level is. I'm going to go into like the return of Paolo Banchero in the first week, maybe almost 2 weeks, with almost like no expectations. Yeah. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. And if we're just blown away, then we'll be super happy to be blown away. And if he does, he's not going to look terrible, but if he doesn't look as good as he did when he went out, it's one of those things that's really understandable. And you can't be too frustrated right off the bat. And is he going to have a minutes restriction? Is he going to be able to play in both of these games coming up Thursday and Friday? I don't really know. Be interesting to see that. But like you said, just the confidence in having your main guy back on the floor, right? Like that goes a long way for guys, and the level of confidence that they're able to play with. I don't want to see any of these guys like sort of take their foot off the gas. If Jalen is also able to be back, Thursday or Friday, I know they said that he was moving around a little bit today and he's starting to feel a little bit better, but he still doesn't have any type of like questionable, designation. At least I don't believe so.
He's
I believe
out.
It was just Paolo.
He's listed as out.
He's out for Thursday. Yeah, all the other guys are out. Paolo's questionable for Thursday. Maybe we get Jalen back on Friday. Who knows? That would be awesome. But yeah, like just like pick the offense back up a little bit. Like if we go back to a small sample size, first 5 games with Paolo this year, the offensive rating, the Magic were 16th in the league with 111.8. On the season, I believe they're 110.8, if I'm not mistaken. 108.6, excuse me. So not 110.8, 106.8. So yeah, about 3 points better with Paolo earlier in the year. A lot of things have happened since then obviously. And they were still 4th in the league with the defensive rating at 106.9. Right now, they're 106.3. Again, small sample size. Magic were still, 2 or 3 in the league last year in defensive, efficiency. So people that will try to say Paolo coming back hurts the defense, I don't buy into that at all. Not many people are saying that, but if that's your thinking, like, oh, sure, he's going to help the offense, but the defense is going to take a hit. Not really, but the offense should see a significant boost. And then just to talk about the way that this team continued to compete and perform while Paolo was out. So with Franz, without Paolo in the lineup, so basically going from, November 1st to December 7th, the Magic were 25th in offensive rating, so 109.9. And then in terms of defensive rating, we're second in the league, 105.1. Without Paolo, they knew that they had to pick up the defensive slack. And then without Paolo, without Franz, the offense has been atrocious, 29th in the league, offensive rating of 105.4. And they've been 4th in the league in defensive rating, 108.0. And the last handful of games, a lot of those have been sort of either partly without Jalen Suggs or completely without Jalen Suggs. So I know you and I have talked about this a ton. Jamal Mosley is not getting enough credit. I don't think, like, we've reached the point where I don't feel like the guys that are playing on a nightly basis are getting enough credit. We've had all different kinds of guys step up, whether that be Tristan Da Silva some nights or Goga Batadze or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope a few nights. Cole Anthony as of late, obviously. Caleb Houston's been contributing. Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter. Like, all of these guys just deserve so much credit for the way that each of them has stepped up. And this whole sort of, not this new belief, but it's definitely like a mantra that we've been hearing more as of late. This, we are enough, you are enough. Like, we can compete and we can beat anyone. The fact that Jamaal Mosley has gotten all of these guys to truly 100% buy into that is, to me, further evidence that he is the coach of the year. I don't care what all of the other statistics and records say. Nobody is doing as much as Jamaal Mosley is with less at this point in the year.
Here's the thing. The casual NBA fan, or basically anyone who doesn't follow this team closely, will look at the Magic and see that our record on our last 10 is 5-5, and they'll go, well, 5-5. That's good, not bad. It's 500. When in reality, on paper, the Magic probably should be 0-10 or 1-9 in the last 10. Like legitimately, right? Not just because of the guys that are hurt, but because the opponents. We talked about this a lot in the last show. It's been a really difficult stretch until, the end of last week, we had some more favorable games. But yeah, the fact that they went 5-5 in that stretch is borderline miraculous. And so credit to Jamaal Mosley for that. But you're right, credit to guys. Now, not everyone has been good the whole time, right? That's the other thing, right? Those guys that you just listed off. But it's almost been pick your poison. Like, certain nights, some guys have stepped up, and that's been enough for this team, right? And some nights, guys are having a hard night, and that happens too. Obviously, we're going to talk about Monday's game in New York soon, but the number of guys that stepped up for that game was maybe the best we've seen in the last couple of weeks, without Franz and without Jalen. So, super impressive. I agree about Jamaal Mosley, and we'll see. We'll see about the whole Coach of the Year thing. If it wasn't for this Cleveland team that's soaring and this OK team that's soaring even more, I feel like you have a better chance. But these days, those teams are they're flying. In fact, they're playing right now as we speak. 10 minutes left. It's a 1-point game. Sounds like a doozy of a game. But yeah, if it was me, Jamaal Mosley would be Coach of the Year.
I tweeted the other night that if Jamaal Mosley isn't your Coach of the Year, then you're just not paying close enough attention. And I understand it, right? Like, you're watching the Cavs, you're watching Oklahoma City. Cleveland was a team that was the 4 seed last year with missing a lot of their guys for a good chunk of the year. Oklahoma City was top 2, top 3.
They were the 1 seed
last year. These teams have been good. And yes, Kenny Atkinson has taken Cleveland to another level up. Mark Daigneault, if you want to talk about Sam Presti and some of the moves that they've made to continue to improve that roster with Caruso and now Hartenstein being back, I'm all for those conversations. And I'm not trying to take away anything from those other guys as coaches, but just the Magic are winning games off of pure belief right now. And the way that Jamaal Mosley is scheming these games and the way to play in each one of these particular matchups, I just don't understand, in a league that is driven forever by narratives, how you don't look at that narrative and say, you know what, that is the guy doing the most this year at his position. But that's going to be something that we continue to talk about all year long. I know the way that this ends, the way that this movie ends, is those awards being announced in early May and me being annoyed and scorned and complaining that I know how this is going to end. I'm not naive to that. But that will not stop me from pounding the table at every single opportunity that Jamaal Mosley should be the Coach of the Year. One thing that I wanted to mention that I failed to mention in talking about with Paolo, without Paolo, with Franz, and then without both of those guys, and this is even more Jamaal Mosley evidence here, but we were 3-2 with Paolo to start the year before he goes out. Then the Magic lose 5 in a row once Paolo goes down. And then they go 13-2 in those next 15 games, ended up 13-7 with Franz, without Paolo. And then it's crazy to think it's already been 13 games without Franz. Somehow the Magic are 6-7 without Franz, and Jalen missing almost a handful of those 13 games.
Unreal.
It's truly unreal, especially when you look at the games since Franz has gone out. Phoenix, Milwaukee, New York, Oklahoma City, Miami, Boston, Miami, New York, Brooklyn, Detroit, Toronto, Utah, New York. like you would say the Magic would probably have been lucky to win 3 or 4 of those games in that stretch. And they've gone 6 and 7. And that's a buzzer beater that you lose, to Miami. And then, another couple of games maybe that you argue the Magic should have won, like talking about the Utah game, which I'm sure at the end of the year, if the Magic are a game behind whatever seeding we feel like they should be, that's going to be one of the games that we point to. It's truly been remarkable. Like when we talk about this team and anti-Destiny versus the team of Destiny, there's equal argument for each. And the fact that right now, after, 22 and 16, what is that, 38 games in, the fact that we are 1 game better than we were last year at this same point makes no sense whatsoever.
And here's the thing. You and I talked, not just us, most Magic fans talked, right? Once Paolo gets hurt, it was, let's try to just stay afloat until he comes back.
Like,
well, here
go
we are,
500
folks.
Without
Right.
Paolo.
Go 500 without Paolo, and here we are, folks. Like, we went over 500 without Paolo, and for 13 of those games has been without Franz, and like you said, a few without Jalen as well.
You went, 19 and 14 since the Paolo injury.
Ridiculous. And you have been through potentially, arguably, the hardest part of your schedule already. There are still some tough stretches. We're in the middle one right now. We still have another West Coast trip. But all in all, over the course of those 2 months, potentially the toughest 2 months you will have this season. Statistically, it is. You go to Tankathon. Statistically, the Magic have one of the easiest remaining schedules, right? And you did it all without him, far exceeding not just expectations, but hopes, if you ask me, right? Like, think back to our episode right after the Paolo injury, right? Like, I just remember feeling like, oh my goodness, like this, the dream of this season, not necessarily the playoffs, because obviously we knew he wasn't out for the season, but the dream of what this regular season could be died that day. And I was wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like, not just statistically us being this far over 500, but even just the moments, it's been so fun already. This team just has never quit. They've kept themselves in most games. And Paolo's coming back, right? Paolo's coming back, and here we go. Let's do it.
This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Jam Hot Chicken. This Saturday, celebrating 3 years at their location in Winter Park, over at 400 West New England Avenue in Hannibal Square, Winter Park. Jam Fest this Saturday, January 11th, from 11 to 7. There's going to be food specials, different vendors there. Vintage Magic clothing. Our boy Gio from Players Only Closet will be there selling vintage Orlando Magic gear. And they're going to have crazy food specials like a beef hot rib, Jam Hot Chicken style, Jam Hot Chicken wings, chicken and waffles. There's going to be cold brew and lemonade there as well from Curate Coffee. Just going to be like an awesome melding pot of Orlando business restaurants and establishments. Going to be a great time. Kevin and I will be there at 11. So if you want to come through and hang out, say what's up, we will be there. Really looking forward to that. And Jam Hot Chicken is bringing Jam's culture into hot chicken. I don't know why I said hot chicken like that, but hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park. Nashville and LA inspired hot chicken shack, locally owned and operated, again, 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square. Follow them at Jam Hot Chicken on all social media and go to jamhotchickenfl.com. Access the menu, online ordering, and more. And they're now available on Uber Eats for delivery locally. If you're going to Jam Hot, and especially if you're going there this Saturday, whatever heat level you usually get, go one step below. Trust me, you will not forget it. And be sure to let them know that their friends over at the Six Man Show sent you to Jam Hot Chicken.
The Six Man Show is also brought to you by Mackle Canny, Jay, Jonathan Garcia, Pierre A., and DC Magic. Those are 5 of our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons that went to patreon.com/The Six Man Show and decided, hey, we want to help financially support the mission of the Six Man Show, which is to grow and increase the Orlando Magic fan base and grow this community. And so big shout out to them and shout out to all of our patrons. We also shout out brand new patrons. And today we want to welcome Mike D, who is a new patron of ours. Big shout out to Mike for joining the Patreon. If you'd like to do that, you can go to patreon.com/The Six Man Show. Check out the different tiers that we have available. Pick the one that's right for you. And for as little as $2 a month, you can support what we're doing here at the Six Man Show. That money goes to cover almost everything, things from watch parties to the software that we use to record episodes, to the gear that we use for the Six Fan Show, pretty much anything and everything you can think of, all of it is made possible by our patrons. So again, if you want to join the movement that we have here, go to patreon.com/The Sixth Man Show. And now let's get back to the episode.
Depending on how this season wraps up, like, if we make a run to the Eastern Conference Finals, or by some crazy circumstance we end up in the finals, or maybe if we even win it all, who knows, right?
Chill.
I'm just saying, I'm not.
I
just don't want to sell this team short at this point. But at some point, I think it's very likely that we are going to look back at this season, and we might still be able to say, like, well, what if Paolo didn't get hurt, or what if Franz didn't get hurt? Like, if things don't break our way and we end up in like a tough second round matchup that maybe could have been more favorable had we had, I don't know, another 3 or 4 wins, depending how things break. Part of me is I still have that level of frustration and questions and concerns of, like, what could this season look like to this point if we would have been relatively healthy. But you're right. When Paolo went down, like, we're like, okay, the expectations for this season have to change. And then when Franz went down again, it's like, okay, well, the expectations for this season have to change again. But had you told us back at the beginning of October that we would be 22-16, we would miss Paolo for 34 games, Franz for probably 20 plus games, and Jalen for a handful of games where we didn't have either of those, and you told us we're still 22-16, everybody would have taken that.
Yeah. And the 4 seed, right? This is not like a high power Eastern Conference right now. Obviously, the Cavs and the Celtics are in a different league.
You know what? I understand what you're saying. I'm like, you look at the West. The West isn't setting the world going crazy right now.
I know, but I'm saying some years 22-16 is like the 6th seed or whatever. But I'm saying, like,
I just want to throw a little bit of respect on the East this year. The East has been, sure, Philadelphia has not been what anybody thought they were going to be, but like, you look over at the 3 seed Memphis Grizzlies, they're 24-13. The 3 seed New York Knicks are 24-13. Like, the records are not that crazy. Even when you look at the head-to-head record this year, it's not like super skewed to the West. It's just a few games.
The top is respectable. The problem with the East is once you get past, the first 5 teams or so, whatever it is.
The Lakers, the Clippers, the Wolves, the Spurs, the Warriors, like, they're not world beaters this year either.
Correct. They're not world beaters, but I would pick all of them to beat the corresponding seeds from the East that are in the same spots. But that's just me.
Probably.
Regardless, the one more thing I want to say about Paolo, like, and this cannot be lost on any of us, myself included. Another scenario, like you said, let's say Paolo comes back and he's, I don't know if rusty's the right term, but whatever, a guy's been out for 2 months. He is the type of player that can have a bad 47 minutes, quote unquote bad 47 minutes, but if it's a tie ball game down the stretch, he can still go win you a basketball game, right? Think back to the game in Detroit last year. One of, if not the worst game of his career. Awful night. He was sick, played terribly, and yet hit the game winner to win that one. And so that game alone has me, like, excited, because, like, this team has proven they can be in games. And even if they're in games and Paolo has stunk it up for 47 minutes, I'm still going to trust him with the basketball in the last 60 seconds, right? Another reason to get excited, another reason to get fired up, and the fact that he's also likely going to make his return at home. The scenes that night, whether it's Thursday or Friday or whenever, it's going to be electric.
The other thing about Paolo is he doesn't necessarily have to shoot the ball particularly well to make an impact on the game. He can get to the free throw line. He can draw attention. He can find, his teammates. He can rebound the basketball. Like, even if he doesn't come back and, shooting the lights out, he can still find a way to be very impactful and still help this offense. Kevin, I did want to ask, are you predicting that he's coming back Thursday or he's coming back Friday?
If I were a betting man, I would lean Friday. I think so, because I would be surprised if he plays back-to-backs. And so, therefore, I would be surprised if they bring him back Thursday and then rest him Friday. So with that in mind, I'm going to lean towards Friday, also with a slight bias, knowing that I'm going to be there on Friday and would love to be present for the return of Paolo Banchero.
I also do think there's something to the fact that like Minnesota is a Western Conference opponent. Milwaukee's an Eastern Conference opponent. You may need that game in terms of like tiebreakers should it come down to it. So like if I have to pick, if I'm Jamal Mosley and I'm setting the lineup for these games, knowing that Jalen Suggs is not playing on Thursday, if both of those guys are able to go on Friday, that gives us a better chance. I'd rather sit Paolo Thursday, have both of them Friday, than have Paolo Thursday, have Jalen Friday. And again, Milwaukee being an Eastern Conference opponent, you may need that game for tiebreaker purposes. I would bet Friday as well, and I'll also be in the building on Friday and would really love to be there for Paolo's return. So, but if it's Thursday, I'm going to be a little bit sad, but I'll still be pretty fired up that our boy is back.
Well, let me just go back. You also think he's not going to play a back-to-back right off the rip, right?
No, I would be really surprised if he does.
Okay, me too.
Hey,
like,
how did we get screwed to get like a back-to-back, a couple of days off, right into another back-to-back? How did that happen?
Brutal. Because we've been screwed all season with the schedule as far as like games played. Like we're still leading the league. It's crazy. Like here's the thing. I forgot to tell you. I didn't text you this the other night. Monday, it was Tuesday. It was Monday. Whatever night there was a night the Magic. I think it was the Knicks game and the I think it was the Heat and the Wizards. There were two teams. The Magic played their 38th game, and I think it was the Heat and Wizards. Don't quote me on that. Those teams were playing their 33rd game the same night. We have played 5 more games on the same night than 2 other teams in the league. That is, it's not like 1, 2, 3 games. I get it. 5 games, that is crazy stuff. And again, I know it eventually balances out. The team's going to get more rest here in the second half of the season. But the fact
I don't know, man. I feel like we're going to end up being like, how did we play 86 games this year?
Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, having 5 more games than other teams in the league is just, and they were Eastern Conference teams too. Just so weird, so messed up. But regardless, yeah, I just can't imagine Paolo playing back to back. And so I'm leaning towards Friday.
Yeah, same here, but we will see for sure. All right. Enough about Paolo. We can't wait to talk more about Paolo, but we want to see the guy play some basketball first. Let's get into the state of the Magic. This week, the Magic are 1-0 so far with a win over the Knicks in Madison Square Garden. Right now, sir?
I was just fired up. The Magic won at MSG. I was just,
Perfect. At 22-16, the Magic are sitting at 4th in the East. As of the time of this recording, there are a couple of games getting ready to wrap up, so this will be different by the time that you hear this. But as of right now, as of what time is it? 9 o'clock, something. Yeah, 9:13 Wednesday night. The Magic are 4th in the East, 10.5 games back of Cleveland. Looking at the clock, they're up 7 with 4 to go. That will probably be a little bit different by the time that you hear this. We are 10.5 games back, 10.5 games back of Cleveland, 5 games back of Boston, 2.5 games back of New York, especially after that win on Monday. 2 games up on Milwaukee, 2.5 games up on Miami, Atlanta, and Indiana. 3 games up on Detroit, 4 games up on Chicago. 26 in offensive rating with an offensive rating of 108.6. Second in the league in defensive rating with a defensive rating of 106.3. 10th in the league with a positive net rating of 2.3. Taking a look at the injury report for Thursday versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Paolo Banchero is questionable. The return to competition conditioning. Gary Harris still out with the left hamstring strain. Jalen Suggs still out with the low back strain. Franz Wagner still out with the right oblique. And then Mo Wagner out with the torn ACL. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they will be missing Rob Dillingham. He's out with a right ankle sprain. And then the rest of their guys are going to be good to go, as the other guys that are out on their team are all two-way guys. And yeah, the next thing for the Magic is really just going to be getting Franz Wagner back, Kevin. And I don't know. I'm hoping I want nothing more than that to be like a week away, but that seems like that is more than likely still going to be a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it is. But I think it's undeniable at this point that he is clearly progressing at a faster pace than Paolo, right? We heard the reports that it was going to be it was a less significant tear than what Paolo had, and it looks like that's the case, right? We're already seeing, we talked about this already. We're already seeing him doing some of those workouts with that chest plate thing that has the resistance bands and stuff. Like, we've seen that. We've seen him shooting the basketball this week as well. Got some shots up at MSG. pregame, which was pretty cool. So it feels like he's much closer than, like we said, the 10 weeks that Paolo has potentially been out. So fingers crossed it's sooner rather than later.
So it's been 4 weeks since Franz has been out. I would if I was guessing, with it being a less significant tear, I would, if Paolo was 10, probably somewhere around like 7 to 8 weeks for Franz, which would put it anywhere between another 3 to 4 weeks, which I think is manageable, especially when you look at the upcoming schedule. So we know Minnesota, Milwaukee, then Philadelphia, Milwaukee again, Boston, Denver. That's basically your next 2 weeks there. And then Toronto, Portland, Detroit, Miami, Portland, Utah, Golden State, Sacramento, Denver, San Antonio. And that would put us right around that like 7 to 8 week mark there. So if you get Franz back, I mean, at that point, you really only have Atlanta and Charlotte before the All-Star break. Do you get Franz back before the All-Star break? I would probably say like 50-50, not having any information, but just given the timetable and, how long Paolo was out and how, we still don't have that like return to competition conditioning designation for Franz. If we get that back, if we get that like in the next week or so, then we start getting really excited here. But the longer that this goes on, it's like, well, why would you bring him back just 2 games before the All-Star break? You might as well give him a little bit of extra time. And at that point, I don't want to hear Franz on any type of All-Star vacation. I want that boy in the gym running wind sprints, getting ready to come back February 20th. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Now let's go back to Monday. Monday's pod, I said that the Magic were going to go either Owen Wilson or Jennifer Coolidge. Wow. 0-4 on the week here. And especially like going into MSG, I just didn't expect the Magic to pull it out. I didn't expect a couple of things. I didn't expect both Jonathan Isaac and Wendell Carter Jr. both to have their best games of the year. And then Cole Anthony had a spectacular performance. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was really solid. This was a game that really the Magic were keeping the Knicks at arm's length for most of the game. And then when the Magic got the lead and were able to grow that a little bit in the fourth quarter, and it became apparent that they were going to pull it out, or really, I guess, really held the lead for most of the game, actually, now that I look back on it. But they never blew the game open, I guess, is more so what I'm trying to say. And then, the last few minutes of that game where they were able to grow the lead a little bit, and it was apparent that, hey, if you can just hold on for another 3 or 4 minutes, you're going to walk out of here with a win. Just once again, a game to celebrate these guys and the way that they play, the way they fight, a game to celebrate Jamal Mosley and the way that he gets these guys ready to play and the spirit in which they play. And going into Madison Square Garden, I don't care that they didn't have Karl Anthony Towns. Anybody trying to make that argument, you're just so you're like your complaints and your cries are falling on deaf ears. We legitimately have no empathy for you at this point. The Magic just being able to pull out another massive W.
Yeah, it's another one of those where you just feel like there is no chance, and yet they find a way, right? It's strange. But you got to give credit to some of the guys. We just talked about it a second ago. It's a lot of the guys, that are right now being forced into roles that they aren't accustomed to, right? Like almost everybody is, right? And you got to give him credit because obviously the first one that comes to mind for this game was Cole. Cole had obviously an amazing game a couple weeks ago against Miami, had 34 points, something like that. Had a pretty good game thereafter against Boston, and then for the most part has been pretty poor again, like regressed to how he was most of the season. And then all of a sudden Monday night happens and he has a great game, a very important game. We don't win this game without how Cole played. We don't win this game without how Wendell played. Like you said, his best game of the season. We don't win this game without how Jonathan Isaac played. I thought it was his best game of the season. His offensive rebounds were huge. His
almost
presence,
26 minutes.
Exactly.
I don't think that can be overlooked.
Yeah, his presence in the paint was huge. All those things combined, other guys like you mentioned, KCP played well. All those things combined, it was, as Jamal would say, enough. It was enough to get the win. And it was really awesome. Another great win. And I said this on the post-game live. any other season, that is like a top 3, top 2, maybe top 1 win of the season, right? You go into MSG, you're down everybody. You're literally down a third of your roster, and you find a way to win that. But in this season, it's like top 5, top 6, and we're halfway through the year, right? Like it's just crazy, but so
it felt
impressive.
like the Denver win, like the win in Denver last year.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. You had 8 guys in that game, and down
but you
to the
didn't have
wire.
Paolo Banchero.
Yeah, I didn't have
one.
Exactly. Yeah. And so yeah, it's a strange season, but once again, credit to the guys. The fact that they can go into those games every night believing they have a chance, I'll never understand it, because I
borderline delusion.
It's crazy. Yeah, I don't understand it, but kudos to them. Like, that's how, in theory, all professional athletes should be, right? You should go into every game not expecting to lose, right? So I don't know, man. Every single time they always amaze me, and so give them credit. And I hope, and I believe they will. I hope they will carry that spirit through the whole season, even if we're 100% healthy, got all our quote unquote superstars back. I hope from player 1 to player 15 or 14, because we still have an open 2-way spot, that they carry that spirit with them throughout the season.
Wendell has been playing with a like refreshed level of aggression recently, but just playing with more energy, playing with more physicality. With him trying to find his spot in the lineup, I do think there is something of not doing it in the same way, but with the same type of intentionality of Mo Wagner, like coming in off the bench and knowing that, hey, I've got to make these minutes really worth it. And like Mo would come in and have 6 points in 8 minutes, in the first half. Wendell sort of trying to fill that role, I think, is probably best for everybody at this point. Like, if Wendell's goal is like, hey, I'm just going to come in off the bench, be the high energy guy, try to get some quick points for this team off the bench. I tweeted that during Monday's game. Like, Wendell in the Mo Wagner role, like, really might not be such a bad idea. The shooting from deep, at least, I mean, he had like really big threes in this game, was 3 of 3 from behind the arc, but it just hasn't really been there this season, at least up to this point. Maybe this is the beginning of that turning around, not only for Wendell, but for the entire team. But like those 8 to 10 foot, like mid-range free throw line jumpers, it feels like those are wide open for him all day long. If he can start to knock those down with any level of consistency, we're not going to get the pump fakes necessarily in the drives to the rim. Wendell had a couple of those in this game. I was gonna say, yeah. But like that was, with Mo Wagner, that's one of the patented moves, and the the spins and the kiss off the glass. I don't know that we're going to get those, but we need that sort of level of production from Wendell, and the added defense that he gives you is a massive bonus. And then Jonathan Isaac, we talked about it, but the 13 points, 9 rebounds, 25 and a half minutes, 4 of 5 from the floor, 1 of 1 from behind the arc, and 6 free throws, at least attempts. It was 4 of 6 from the line in this game, as well as the 2 blocks. Like, that's the Jonathan Isaac that we need. If he, I mean, the defensive LeBron metrics will tell you he's still one of the most impactful defenders in the league. The eye test to this point in the season, it doesn't feel like that. But sometimes you just have to trust the numbers. And it's not that he's been bad. He just hasn't jumped off the screen at you like he has in previous years. But 4 massive offensive rebounds in this game. If he can start to give you 2 to 3 offensive rebounds a game and get this team extra possessions, and, like Gogo Batadze said in that video, not the video that was sped up, and then I was able to slow it down to see what Gogo Batadze was really saying and roasting half of the roster, but not get the offensive rebound and put it on the floor, but get it and go back up with it. That was going to be huge. And then last episode, you didn't want me to bring it up, but we've got 2 very solid Jett Howard games in a row.
Yeah.
Where he comes in and gives you a legitimate boost, especially in that second half from Jett Howard. I know we don't want to jump to any conclusions with Jett Howard, but the signs that we have seen incredibly recently have been encouraging. That's all that I want to say about Jett.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair and valid, and he definitely deserves praise for that. And what I really like about Jets game on Monday, it wasn't all about the 3-ball. Like, he was able to knock down some mid-range jumpers, which looked really good. And so we'll take that. When it comes to Wendell, for me, what I loved about his game on Monday, you mentioned the aggression, but like, how many times did he actually try to get to the rim? He was intentional about driving on the New York Knicks defense. And like, it's not going to be perfect every time. Obviously, he was great Monday. What was he, 8 of 11 from the field or something like that? He's not going to do that every night, but even just that amount of movement, right? Like, this offense is just is painful right now, especially without Paolo and Franz. And so creating that kind of movement to where he's getting to the rim, his defender is having to follow him. And if he's able to get a good look at the basket, great. If not, it at least draws a defender somewhere else that allows space for someone else to move into. So all those things combined really well. And you're right. If Wendell can come off the bench and have that same attitude, that same aggression, I think it's going to bode really well for him and really well for this team, who is searching for some bench production offensively, like really bad. Obviously, right now, the bench unit is just a mess because of the injuries. But once everyone is healthy, you roll out that bench unit, it's going to be pretty reliant on somebody, 1 or 2 guys, to go get buckets. If Wendell can be that person, that would be great. We'll see who the other person is. If Cole can get some kind of consistency, maybe it's him. Maybe it's Tristan da Silva. I don't know. But I think that could be really, really big for this team.
One teeny critique of Wendell is in almost 26 minutes, I need more than 2 rebounds. That's the other area of Wendell's game that needs to be more consistent. Him playing, 25, 20, 25 minutes off the bench, whatever it's going to be, like, we need 4 or 5 rebounds from you off the bench each game. Like, there's no reason you should be at almost 26 minutes in 2 rebounds. I know J.I. was gobbling up a lot of those. Those guys played the majority of their minutes together. But Wendell just has to find a way to be more of a factor in that facet of the game. But yeah, Tristan da Silva wasn't awesome offensively, but gives you minutes, gives you good minutes, gives you a little bit of everything. Felt Anthony Black in his 26 minutes. Something is legitimately up with him and Jalen Brunson. Like, every time that those guys are on the floor, they seem to be chirping at one another. Anthony Black defended Jalen Brunson really well early in last season. I don't know how much of that stems from that, but like, Jalen Brunson, 8 of 21 in this game. Somebody called it early on in the game that Jalen Brunson wasn't having so good of a game. Then he went on a little bit of a run, but ultimately didn't end up shooting the ball that well. But I thought Anthony Black gave really good minutes as well defensively and got to the free throw line 8 times in this game and had 5 assists.
Yeah.
Look at all the guys like Goga 4 assists, Cole Anthony 4 assists, Anthony Black 5 assists, Wendell Carter 4 assists. Like, Magic were just playing really good basketball Monday night.
Yeah, I think that's part of Jalen Brunson's issues. He's just a baby. I think that's also the other part of it. Like, that dude is. I'm glad he's not on my team, honestly. Like, some people can say he's a great scorer, he's crafty, all those kinds of things. Yeah, but he's a baby. So keep him out. New York can keep him. I don't care.
That's what I keep saying about this Knicks team is I just don't feel like they have the same level of like grit and nastiness that it felt like they had last year. And I'm at the point. I mean, we lose this season series, 3-1, but we never got to see them with our full roster. And I mean, Cat does concern me a bit, but I just kind of want to see what these teams look like against one another healthy. The main thing that concerns me is the atmosphere at Kia if these teams meet in the playoffs. And I think, understandable level of concern with that, but I don't know, maybe these season ticket holders will stop selling their tickets to Knicks fans when it's time for playoffs.
Right. It's possible, but
who knows?
Even so, the season ticket is popular, but it's not that popular. There's still going to be some, non-season ticket openings, but it's up to Central Florida to swoop them up. Speaking of good teams, I'll report that the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in this game. Cavs are up 7 with 25 seconds left. I've been watching the end here. The only thing I'll mention about this game, the Cavs had the ball with just over 3 minutes left and got 4 straight offensive rebounds. OKC didn't get another possession till like 1:15. They burned like 105 seconds off the clock, like almost 2 minutes off the clock. It was a crazy possession, but it's going to lead to the Cleveland Cavaliers winning, I think, their 11th in a row now. Again, another double-digit win streak for them. They're a machine. It's crazy, but I can't wait until February when we play them, hopefully fully healthy. I think it's the 26th, the 24th, something like that in February, at home, hopefully fully healthy except for Mo Wagner, and then maybe we can have a nice matchup and get some revenge. And
that game is what I think it's a TNT.
It's a TNT game, yeah.
In February 25th. And I'm just looking at the stats of that game. Like, good grief, both teams just shot the absolute crap out of the ball. Like, what is it, 122 to 129 right now? Like, Dean Wade 4 of 5, Evan Mobley 8 of 13, Jarrett Allen 9 of 11. Donovan Mitchell did not have a good game, 3 of 16. Woof. Darius Garland 7 of 15. Max Drew 6 of 7, 5 of 6 from behind the arc. Ty Jerome 6 of 7. Like, man, like against the number 1 defense in the league. It's just, that team is a machine, and doing that with Donovan Mitchell not having a good game. But I'm just really excited to see what this team looks like fully healthy, because we got to see that for all of like 2 games at the beginning of the year before Franz, was ill at the beginning of the season. So like when you think about it like that, like we really only got about 2 games with this team fully healthy before the illness bug started to bite the team on that first like road trip or whatever. So just, is this team going to make moves before the deadline? Who knows? Like, they might just want to see really what they have, because they haven't been able to see that really all year to this point. But I think, if anything, Gary probably still needs to be headed elsewhere to open up some time for Tristan da Silva and some other guys once we're fully healthy. But anyways, Kev, last thing that I wanted to talk about, the latest episode in the Dwight Howard versus Shaq drama saga has happened once again. I guess Dwight was talking about how Shaq's always been a hater on his podcast. They've been going back and forth on Twitter. I personally am Team Dwight in this matter, because I see what Dwight sees, that over the course of Dwight's career, Shaq has never really shown him the appropriate love in the way that you would expect and hope that another Orlando Magic legend would give, at the time, up-and-coming Orlando Magic legend. I think some of it had to stem from the Superman stuff, and maybe Dwight felt like, or Shaq felt like Dwight was trying to step into his shoes a little bit too much. But at the end of the day, I really just think that even though Shaq broke up with us, he's that guy that he breaks up with the girl, but he doesn't want to see the girl dating anybody else. And no matter what happens, no matter how good of a guy that is, with his new girl, he always wants to be the guy that she is pining after and falling over and is obsessed with. And even though he left the Magic, he still wants to be remembered as the guy, that put the team on the map, and he did. But anybody who really threatens his legacy and could potentially be viewed as that guy all time for the franchise, seems like he's a little bit threatened. Like, people have mentioned how he hasn't really thrown any shade at Paolo, but he really hasn't showered Paolo with a ton of love either, again, in the way that you would expect with him being a Orlando Magic legend, and has like disproportionately showed Franz Wagner and the Wagner brothers every chance that he gets, he talks about the Wagners, hardly ever talks about Paolo. I just find that very weird. And then Shaq to turn it around and be like, oh, well, you can't take a joke. It's pretty obvious that you have not been joking for the past almost 20 years now.
Yeah, I too am Team Dwight. Not only those things, but he's not just been unloving or not loving to Dwight. He's also just been a straight up bully. Like, some of the stuff he said, some of the stuff he's done is not cool. And I've always been Team Dwight in this stupid little feud that they have. Rewind back to last February, though, when it came time to retire Shaq's jersey, I really thought that was going to be like the dawn of a new era, right? Like the turning of a new leaf. I thought that was going to start to bury some of that night where he finally got his dues and all those things. And here we are a year later, and that has not happened. That has not changed. I was someone who, going into that, really thought it should have been Nick Anderson first, and then you can add a Shaq or a Dwight or a whoever. And so I was a little bit apprehensive going into it, but I decided to go in with an open mind, an open heart, and just embrace the night, embrace the celebration, and embrace Shaq. I'm going to say something really controversial, Jonathan. I regret that.
Yeah.
I legitimately regret that. I regret my attitude that night. I regret, I don't want to say cheering for him, but I kind of do. Like, I kind of feel gross about it now because he's still acting this way. He's still acting like a child. And when we go to Kia on Friday night, his number is going to be up in the rafters. The only number up in the rafters. And this is how he acts. I don't know.
Our number is up there, baby.
That's true. The fans. You and I, the fans. So it just rubs me the wrong way, and I don't like it. And I think if Dwight didn't have the connection with the Magic, I probably wouldn't care as much. But because of who he is to me, because of who he was to...
who also wouldn't care as much if Dwight didn't have the connection with the Magic?
Yeah.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah. But I think that's why it's so personal, because like Dwight was a huge part of my upbringing, and I don't know, like it feels personal and it feels childish.
He wasn't a part of your upbringing.
I mean, he was a huge...
He didn't raise you, Kevin.
Okay, he kind of did. He kind of did.
A part of your childhood, yes. I wouldn't say he was a part of your upbringing.
Okay, fine. If you want to correct me, fine. He was part of my childhood, sort of, kind of my upbringing as well. But anyway, yeah, I think that's why it hits close to home, and I'm just kind of sick and tired of it. I wish he'd just get over himself. And honestly, if this is true, if he's never going to mention Dwight's name again, that's fine. Sign me up for that. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah, it does. Like, I was right there with you, and there's a lot of people out there listening to this saying, I told you so. Like, there were people last year saying, like, he doesn't care about the franchise. He only cares about himself. And I went into that night very hopeful that we could sort of bury the, proverbial hatchet and move forward in a good, good faith relationship with Shaq. But he hasn't been around since then. He hasn't been talking about the Magic very, affectionately or anything like that. And yeah, the stuff with Dwight just continues to be lame. It does feel like he was fine getting his flowers and getting all of the love that night. And, maybe there was some genuine appreciation showed. But again, I feel like he's just showing that for the most part, what Shaq cares about is Shaq.
Yeah. And I'll say one more thing. This is maybe one of the most controversial things we ever said on this show. I think back to when Kobe died. Right. Do you remember the first show when Shaq was on Inside the NBA after Kobe died?
Are we talking about the one that they did like from
Staples right?
Center?
Yeah. If I might be getting my episodes mixed up. I believe that one, he got super emotional and talked about the basically the feud that they had and how he wished it was different, and he wished he could say some things to Kobe that he never got to say, right? Because he passed
I don't
away.
know if it was that episode or like one of the subsequent,
right, yeah,
but
that's
I
what
do
I'm saying.
like he's echoed a similar sentiment multiple times.
Correct. That's what I'm getting at. I can't remember which specific episode it was, but he has said that. That's also part of it. What bothers me, how you can get on national TV and say those things and then turn right around and still act like this to someone else. I know you weren't a teammate with Dwight. I know it's different, but he's still a human being. He's still someone who didn't really do anything to you that we know of. Maybe there was something behind closed doors, but to my knowledge, Dwight didn't do anything to Shaq, right? Shaq just feels threatened by Dwight's mere existence, right? And so all those things combined, I just don't understand it. Like you talk about the NBA being a family and all, and then you still treat a fellow family member like this. I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me, and it really makes me angry. And so I'm pretty sick of it. And
it's just childish.
Yeah.
And, I feel like he's, shown examples of childish behavior time and time again, and it is what it is. I don't think it's ever going to change. His number belongs in the rafters. Don't get me wrong, because like Orlando, the city, and the organization, and like just the cultural impact of the Orlando Magic and that logo that you have on your hat and I have above my shoulder here. Like none of that is really as significant without Shaq. But yeah, it still sucks that he still is going to continue to act this way, because guess what? There will be a day where Dwight Howard's jersey is in the rafters.
Yep.
And regardless of what you think about these guys' careers, you just go Magic career versus Magic career. Dwight is unequivocally, unmistakably the greatest Magic player of all time. And that's not going to change. And I'm interested to see how this is going to develop with Paolo long term. Does Shaq prove us wrong that he doesn't care about any of that stuff and that he's not insecure and that he's not threatened by somebody else like being the guy for the franchise? As Paolo continues to improve and this team continues to improve, do we get the backhanded compliments that we've seen from Shaq over the years? Or does he try to say stuff like Franz is the better player, this is Franz's team, blah blah blah? I'll be monitoring that very closely, and I promise you, if I feel any type of way about the way that Shaq talks about this organization or Paolo Banchero, we will absolutely be revisiting this conversation.
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right, let's wrap this one up. That's going to do it for this one. Looking forward to Paolo being back, hopefully in the next couple of days here. I know you all are as well. Looking forward to our watch party again at Stadium Club coming up on January 17th. The RSVP link is in the description for the podcast and the YouTube episode. Looking forward to that. That's going to be a great time, but we're going to end this one. For Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!